We're glad you're listening to the Help My Unbelief podcast, the #1 Christian podcast made for the unbeliever.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello, TikTok land and just wherever else land that we're at right now. Saturday night, 7 p.m., right here live.
What do Christians do on Saturday night at 7 p.m.?
Well, we're either A, asleep, or we're watching The Chosen. That's it. That's all we do. What do you do on Saturday night normally?
I really could watch The Chosen 24/7.
Really?
Yeah. I really like the format that they put together.
You enjoy it that much, huh?
I do.
Okay. So this is a live stream of the Help My Unbelief podcast. For those of you that watch the Help My Unbelief podcast, we're going to just do a normal podcast and we're going to do it live right here. We will interact with your comments. So if you can see this, we will interact with your comments. And normally we don't, but we will interact with your comments tonight. So if you want to comment, just comment. We do have an unbeliever slated, an atheist slated to come on tonight, and so we will have an atheist come on later on tonight. But we'll go from there. What we did have a topic, right? Coco, did we have a topic? Okay, topic is it okay for Christians to celebrate Halloween? Is it okay for Christians to celebrate Halloween? Any Christians that are in here, type in the comments whether it's okay. Larry, I want to get your point of view.
As the world celebrates Halloween, I believe not. I used to not think that way. I mean, I grew up celebrating it, dressing up, and even at our churches that I grew up going to, we celebrated Halloween. But we didn't call it anything differently. Now they call it trunk and treat, and I see the need for the interaction with the community. But the dressing up like the boogeyman and stuff, I think that's wrong now.
Yeah.
I have a less than most people's secular viewpoint on things. That makes sense.
Yeah. So here, does the trunk or treat thing we do, does that make you uncomfortable at all? Does it make you feel weird at all? Seeing like all the costumes and stuff in the parking lot, does that make you uncomfortable at all?
Well, not if they're non-scary or, dressing up like big biblical characters or Farmer in a Dale or, kind of stuff like that. But it's when we overshadow a little bit, you know what I mean? Of course, we're inviting the world in here, and the world's going to do what they think is right.
Yeah.
But I can't, listen, I'm not here to judge other people.
Yeah.
I'm not here to question other people on that. It's each individual has their own personal life. I come as me. I do come here. I visit with people. I get to know them. I invite them to church.
Yeah.
And it's an opportunity for us to reach out to the community in a larger way, just like the egg hunt. We are not to celebrate like the world on those type of things. And this is all my opinion, so I can give it to you. This is how I believe now. I didn't used to believe this way. I was one of the first when the Bricktown Haunted House opened up, the very first year, I worked there.
Oh, really?
I loved scaring people.
Dude, you'd be good at that.
I was a very good mummy.
Oh, yeah.
I made my own outfit, and did my own makeup and stuff, and I literally enjoyed walking up behind people in line and tapping them on the shoulder, and they'd turn around and see me.
You don't think you wouldn't do that now?
No.
Yeah.
No, I think that now that I have had the scales, and I know that you don't like this term much, but the scales removed from my eyes, or the different layers of my spiritual eyes, not my physical eyes, but my spiritual eyes, I don't want to be mistaken as the world in any form or fashion.
I don't mind you saying that, right? I just don't like it when you tell unbelievers that.
Well, but you're right, and they don't understand what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
They take it as offensive.
When we talk about scales off your eyes, we talk about it, but if you don't understand spiritual, then what you're seeing or what you're hearing is off your physical eyes.
Do you know what it is? Like, it's one thing that I've kind of been observing about the unbeliever community and the believer community is one thing I've noticed is it's almost like you're saying, I've got something that you don't have, na boo boo type of thing. Like Christians are going, I've got something you have, or you're being fooled, you're being tricked, which at the end of the day, that's kind of what we believe, but it can be offensive because we're all like humans.
How can it be offensive in all honesty when if you have knowledge that I do not have about roofing? And yet I had knowledge on a roofing issue for you.
Yeah. But they're not,
that kind of blew your mind.
But they're not viewing it that way.
But
I get what you're saying.
Your experience is different than mine, and mine is different than yours.
Yeah.
And if you talk to me about cop stuff, that would be, are you referring to me as an idiot because I don't understand the cop stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, I can listen to the truth, which comes from my son-in-law and from you.
Yeah.
I can listen to the truth of the cop world, which is quite different than what you see on TV. But do I have an understanding of it? No, I've never had to barge in the door with the threat of somebody shooting me in the chest. You
can get a pretty good understanding of what being a cop is like from watching on TV. But I mean, until you're doing it, that's why, like, a lot of times I would watch guys and be like, man, I would have knocked that guy's head off, or I would have done this and I would have done that, and then they get out there and they freeze. Yep. And that's like, man, you really don't know what you would do until you get out there. No. And really, what you do in year 1 and what you do in year 10 are much different.
Very much so.
Year 1, you hesitate a lot more because you don't want to get sued, and you don't want to, but year 10, you're just trying to go home. So you're going to act quick in that. But the biggest thing is the reason why I don't like those terminologies is because I understand how they're going to take it. Does that make sense? And I'm trying to bridge that. I'm trying to bridge that gap and try to keep the communication issue because I believe the same thing as you do. You know what I mean?
I'm from an older time frame where we weren't, candy wrapped.
And you're not.
How about that?
And you're not. God, you're going to get me in trouble, man. I'm going to start adding you to the email list so you can, but the biggest thing is like, I don't know. I just feel like, I don't want to like offend them and I don't want them to feel hurt, even though I do believe the same thing as you do. Like I love them, man. I love the unbeliever community and I feel like I got to protect them in a certain way. But at some point, you gotta take those gloves off,
And I'm have gotten a lot better at being careful.
Yeah,
but,
for
but
sure.
I did not come from a bubble wrapped world.
Yeah.
Okay, and to be honest with you, my years in the biker world, the same thing. You weren't bubble wrapped. In the military, you weren't bubble wrapped. You good grief! If you were sensitive, then the drill instructor would have just ate you alive.
I bet boot camp's a lot different now than what you went through.
Yeah, but the first time that I went, or first day in, there were some older guys there that were drill instructors, if you will, and a couple of them, let us know what. If this was 1967, I would have shoved you in a foot locker and left you there for dead,
Yeah.
That kind of stuff that you couldn't even do in 82 when I went in.
Yeah.
So they were telling us the difference then, and I've heard a lot about what I survived in boot camp would not be even close to tolerated now.
Chesty Puller's love child, he asked you a question. Pull it up for Larry. Is Larry a Marine?
My son-in-law's in here too.
Yeah. What's his name? Why am I forgetting his name? Dunbar's in here. Okay, Chesty Puller asked, is Larry a Marine?
No, Air Force.
Air Force. Why did I think you were Army this whole time?
You've done this. I don't know. I've corrected you 47 times as Air Force.
I was trying to find
Do
a
I
joke.
need to wear an Air Force hat for
I was
you?
trying to find a joke there. I couldn't find it.
Yeah, you
couldn't
can't.
find one.
No, I was a full. I was in the Air Force, and I have been in every military aircraft that the Air Force has. Yet I have never been off the ground in a military aircraft.
So can I share on my talk? Can I share my point of view on this topic on should Christians celebrate Halloween? Here's what I like to do when I ask these questions. I always like to. I always think, because here's the deal. Do you have a close-knit relationship with God?
Very much so.
And then you remember that Bible verse where Jesus said, depart from me, I never knew you. So one of my goals has always been to try to get to know him, right? And I don't want to take a position that I know God, right? Like 100%. But I've spent a significant amount of time getting to know him, right? Mm-hmm. And so with that being said, I like to put myself in his shoes here and think, okay, I don't put myself in God's shoes. I just played that back in my head, and that sounds kind of crazy. Okay, hold on. I don't put myself in his shoes, but what I do is I think to myself, what does God think about Halloween and people serving Halloween? And my first response would be that he just doesn't care. You know what I mean? But then I think to myself, what if something you're doing is opening a spiritual door of some sort?
I can tell you didn't read the devotional this morning.
I told you what I do when I read it. Well, you just don't.
The reason why is because, I didn't address that straight up, but I mean, God was angry in Jeremiah that I had written about. In chapter 15, he was showing his anger at the Israelites. Yeah. And they're being led away from the belief in they were chasing after other gods and everything else, which they did several different times, and he had to bring them back in line with punishment, and that's understandable. But my mom, I can look at it this way. My mom brought me back into line in obedience through discipline as well. So I have a very good understanding of discipline. And then, of course, the Air Force was the same way. Any kind of military establishment brings you back into alignment through discipline, just different forms of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, if it's opening some sort of spiritual door, I'd be totally against it at that point. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be advocating for opening a spiritual door of any sort.
I have started asking myself more and more through the things that I do, does this glorify God? Does this glorify God? Does this glorify the world, or does this glorify God? I mean, you either have one or the other. And I tried my best to shy away from those things that do not glorify God. Do I make it on every point in every way? No, I do not.
Right.
But I have a goal each day to bring glory to God.
And so you ask yourself, how does this glorify God? Yeah. Yeah, so you ask yourself in everything you do, how does this glorify God? And if it doesn't, then I like that. I like that concept. But that, I want to be clear, the question is how do we view Halloween?
Very much so.
But if you, I guarantee if you saw one of my kids, well, maybe not me, but if you saw like just some random guy's kids dressed up as Satan, you'd go up and hug them and you'd have no problem. I mean, it's not that you'd have that problem in here, but you wouldn't treat them or judge them any different.
They wouldn't see any reaction on my part. I refuse to do that as well.
But you'd get home and be look, Satan, dude?
I dressed up as a vampire, when I was a kid. That was one of my favorite. All of those old are scary movies from the time, Frankenstein and the werewolf and Dracula and all that. I watched those as a kid. That was in black and white. And if you watched them today, you would find them not scary at all. What is that one? Creature from the Black Lagoon was one of my favorite, But through those kind of things has come and evolved into what we have now, which is pushing straight up demonic activity
Yeah.
right there on the screen in front of you. And you are, in my opinion and my understanding, you're opening up. Boy, that's a good question.
Okay.
Just saw that on the screen. And
Okay.
I went,
Okay, host
"Whoa,
Larry.
hold on.
Larry, so let me explain podcasting to you a little bit
Yeah,
on the
sorry.
fly here. Okay, what you do is whenever you see the production team put up a new topic on there, what you do is you finish your thought that you had, and then
But
you
it floored me.
transition into
It
the
floored
next
me.
topic. Does that
Okay,
make sense?
yeah.
Okay, hey Larry, let's try. Okay, ready? And go. Let's try it again. Larry, go ahead and start back where you were. Okay, ready? Finish the thought and then transition into the new topic. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. No, I mean the stuff that we see now is extremely demonic, and I believe that they are tied to portals. And you, by allowing that into your heart, anything that you see or anything that you hear settles in your heart, and you must make that agreement, with your eyes not to watch that stuff. Yeah, an agreement with your ears not to hear or listen to that stuff.
Yeah.
And if you make that kind of stand on it, it's difficult. I mean, I grew up listening to 70s rock, and the Eagles was one of my favorite bands. But today, if I'm listening to it, I instantly turn away from it. If I hear it, it's funny because the hard rock that we listened to back then is actually, like elevator music now. And I hear some of that stuff, and I'm like, it does not have the call on me because I have put up a resisting wall to it.
Yeah.
And
You just want to eliminate any chance that you're not serving God. That's just where your heart's at. Like,
yeah.
if God was okay with you listen to hard rock, you might do it. If
Well, see, that's my conviction.
Yeah.
That may not be your conviction.
Yeah.
And that's fine. My conviction is I don't want to watch, R-rated or risque movies on TV. I didn't allow my kids to watch it when they were growing up, so why would I sit there and watch it now?
Yeah.
And I lived a lot of my life not giving a crap what I listened to or what I watched. And so now that I have repented of all that, I don't want to backtrack into the world. I am to be set apart from the world. Set apart.
Gotcha.
And so I make that choice to be set apart.
What do you think about the new topic? Okay, say the question so the audience knows what it is. The new topic is...
The new question here is, my child wants to dress up as Jesus for Halloween. Your thoughts? I'm going to go this way. We had a wonderful, our kids pastor, children's pastor, had set up a whole wonderful town of Jerusalem, the whole marketplace here. And one of our characters played Jesus. I think that I would much rather see Jesus in the crowd as I would Satan. How about that?
Can I tell you what my thoughts are on it, just off the top of my head? I would ask the intent behind it. I would say, why do you want to dress as Jesus, and what's your intent?
That would be a great way.
My son, knowing him, he would probably be like, try to make up some joke about it or something. You know what I mean? Like, so you know what I mean? Like, so that would probably be a no for me. If you're trying to make a mockery or fun of it, no. But like, let's say they were just going to do it and like maybe go out and preach the gospel while they're doing it, or, and I think we are getting comments on TikTok that we're not seeing on here. So, okay. Yeah, we'll just try to keep those, because TikTok, I'm so sorry that if we're not getting your comments over to our normal mainframe, we're not trying to ignore you. So we're going to hop over there and look at them every now and then. So, okay, Von Zoom said Preacher Jesus or Passion Jesus. I don't know. I mean, like either one, I don't know. Like for me,
I'm not sure what the question actually means.
Yeah, I guess I don't know.
I hate to be stupid like that. Clarify yourself a little bit, Von Zoom. Anyway,
Chesty Puller
Anyway,
says, I
like-
would dress up like a tax collector.
I actually, for the same vacation Bible school that I was talking about a while ago, I was the tax collector. I was dressed up like a tax collector, and my wife was dressed up as a beggar, and people still asked us if I was Mary and Joseph.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, no. But given the right circumstance, AJ at that particular time made a perfect Jesus, and we showed on one day it was Palm Sunday, and then on another day it was the Last Supper, and then all of these different scenes played out. You can't play out those scenes without Jesus in them. If your child wants to be Jesus with something worldly, like some of these movie stars do, where they're actually truthfully blaspheming Jesus in that, then I would be totally against it and probably not very comfortable around it in any form or fashion.
Yeah. I think even more than dressing up as something demonic or Satan, someone dressing up to blaspheme Jesus, that would make me more I wouldn't be uncomfortable around demonic costumes at all. But if you were blaspheming God, I'd be like, whoa,
Well,
man.
if it's openly, then you can't.
I'd be Googling, how far does lightning strike travel? I'm kidding.
Just watch 911. You can find that out.
Yeah. Coco, have you ever went to a
James
call that
says,
someone's been
"Hello, Danny."
struck by lightning?
James says, yes, very correct. What was correct?
He was probably just interacting with the content. So,
Okay.
huh? Way earlier, yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, I know, but he knows that I wasn't.
That's like a guy that hears something in the living room and goes, huh? 30 minutes later. Nothing, Dad. Everything's fine. What?
Yeah, it kind of goes there, doesn't it?
Uh-huh. What, we got another topic, or we could probably get to our guest here pretty soon. Okay, I'm gonna send. I'm sorry. Are you in my email? Okay, so if you'll scroll down, hold on, I'll tell you his.
By the
email.
way, I sent messenger to everybody in my contact list. so some of them will be showing up here, and some of them already, James said, "I hear you just fine." Thank you, James.
I don't want to put his email address out over the mic, so I'm just going to copy this, and then I'm going to text message you, William. That way you can send it to him. I'm sure he wouldn't mind. I mean, there's only 20 people in here, but
and most of them are my family here. Eric,
what's up? There's my friend Eric. I haven't heard from you in a while, Eric. Yeah.
He said what?
Praise the Lord.
You don't go on Christian Lives, just us.
He said he doesn't go on Christian Lives anymore, just ours.
He used to come on and do the Bible study.
Yeah. He says he says he only does ours now because Christians are mean.
Well, he knows we're not mean. I send him a text every morning.
Make sure if you're watching right now to hit that like button and share it out to your friends on your feed, to your family, repost it. Do whatever you can to help us out. Thank you guys so much for all the support.
This is actually only our second live, and we would love to get this word out a little bit more so that we can address these issues for y'all. I like this.
And we're okay. We're okay with building slowly and coming in and just reaching a few people at a time. And so we're okay with that. We don't have any expectations out of this. But the most help that you could do is like and get that interaction up and comment as well. So on Zoom, I know you were watching in TikTok. So if you are listening, that link was sent to your email. Also, if you are interested in talking to us, you can email us at info@helpmyunbelief.org. The email is right below there. We will send you just like a Zoom link. You don't have to download anything at all. a Zoom link, and it'll take you to a place to where you could either talk with us audio only, or you could even do with video like Von Zoom's fixing to do. So I think he's in here. So we have Von Zoom, which I believe is an atheist, but I'm gonna let him describe what he is, and we're gonna have a chat with him real quick. So let's get to him, Von Zoom. Throw up a lower third for him.
What's the lower third mean?
It introduces him down here.
Okay.
It'll say current guest, and it'll say Von Zoom on there. That way, we can introduce the people that's watching the show and stuff to him. And you could put you said agnostic atheist, right?
Yes.
Put up that as well, agnostic atheist. That way people can know who we're talking to.
Well, thank you, Von Zoom, for coming on. You are our second live guest.
Oh,
and
thank
so
you.
we're still working out all the bugs, so kind of work.
Oh,
with
good.
us
I'm
a little
happy
bit.
I'm happy to be here, guys. I'm really happy to be here.
Okay, I'm going to describe just a little bit how the show goes. I don't know if you've watched any of the episodes.
I watched a couple clips of you guys in Misfit Amish. So.
Oh, nice. Okay, so we are a non-debate platform. Honestly, I've watched some of your stuff, and you'd probably bend me over and spank me if we did get in a debate. So all we're doing is we're just discussing, getting some of your history and stuff like that, and then maybe discussing some things that you think and stuff that we think, and maybe go back and forth in that way. But we want to stay as far away from debating as we can.
Of course.
And I'm going to read a mission statement to you real quick, our mission statement. That way you can understand what our intent here. Our mission is to provide an unbeliever with an environment that is safe from judgment or ridicule without allowing the belittling of God, having the ultimate intent of representing Christ to the unbeliever. So our intent is to represent how we read Christ to be, which is ultimately love. And so that's what our intent is. So thank you for coming on, man. I've actually been talking to you for a little while. I've been promising to get you on, and I've been wanting to save you. I knew you'd be reliable, so I've been wanting to save the reliable people for the lives. So thank you for taking your time out. We don't take it lightly, but we already asked you. You're an agnostic atheist. What's your history? Do you have a Christian history?
Yeah, I was a believer for over 20 years. I got saved when I was 14 at the show at the theater showing of Passion of the Christ. My youth group growing up, we rented out the theater, and we got all the church youth groups in the town together to all go see Passion of the Christ when it came out. When I was in 8th grade at the time, and I was raised Methodist with another family. I met this girl at school, and I went to church with her family on Sundays. My parents weren't religious, but they raised me around religion, so I was always around it. But I mostly went to a non-denominational church in high school. It's called the Vineyard Church. I'm trying to think of how to describe it. It's Pentecostal like, but it's more evangelical than anything. It's just about really going out there, doing the work, and being raised Methodist. That was actually a nice transition because of the charity work. If you're raised Methodist, you do a lot of charity work.
So you liked the switch from like a more Methodist to more of a Pentecostal. You liked that switch?
So what the switch did for me is it was less traditional in like the sermon setup in the church service. I liked a more relaxed approach to a church service because I thought being very, very
Structured.
strict and super organized, like it really took the spiritual part out of it for me for some reason, when it felt so controlled and just did not feel natural. So it was so the church that we changed to had a church service for every single age group. So like the high schoolers were in a high school church service, middle schoolers in a middle school, adults in an adult. Because if you went to the adult, he talked about grown up stuff, very grown up stuff, and Pastor Rich did not beat around the bush with that stuff. And I actually really appreciated that, because if you were in high school, you could go, but he would give you everybody fair warning before you talked about something, uncomfortable. And, but it was, towards the end of high school, I had a falling out with Faith for the first time. I had joined the Army my junior year of high school, and between probably experiencing depression for the first time and a lot of romantic issues in high school, it was just, I had just a spiritual falling out. I got into LaVeyan Satanism for a little bit, a lot of like
Which is atheistic Satanists?
yes,
correct?
atheistic Satanism. Yeah.
Okay.
I was all about, at the time, I was very I liked the theatrics of it. That's what I really liked. I liked the aesthetic. Like, looking back, that's all it really was. I really liked how it looked. I liked I had all of Anton LaVey's books at one point. When I was in Texas for training, I had bought all of his books at the bookstore that was in town, because this bookstore happened to have them. I'm like, oh crap, they're all here. But there's a lot of weird ideas in that I didn't hang around that idea for that long. It was only maybe at the maximum 2 years. I went into this whole eclectic phase of spirituality. That was like, I believe that there was a God, but it was like, there's something good about each faith. That's something positive, something compassionate, something loving. And that's the unifying message I used to think that most religions had. But it was after I got married and had a couple kids, I got back into faith a lot harder. We went to church as a family unit, did Bible studies during the week. We did the double services on Sunday. I taught adult Sunday school for a while at my church. Towards the end, I was heavily, like, if you go back far enough on my TikTok content, I'm doing Christian apologetics. You go back far enough.
Wow, really?
Yeah, you can, like, I leave all my videos up, because I want people to see the journey. It's just like, it's not about an impression. It's like, I want you to see, like, you can see, like, when I start to deconstruct, when I leave, like, you can see my angry atheist phase I had a couple years ago. Like,
Well, that's authentic, at least. I respect that. Coco, you did the same thing, didn't you? You still have all your old stuff up there, don't you? Oh, his account's not active. Sorry, I got him in an earpiece here. Y'all can't hear him. But I was curious, because I respect that too, because it's authentic. Like, there was actually, if you scroll back far enough on my account too, I did the same thing where I treated an unbeliever. I got real upset with them and I lashed out. And it was the next day where I was like, man, I just don't feel like this is what God's called me to be like to those people. And I was going to delete it just out of like shame or embarrassment. And I was like, no, I need to leave that up to show people and to show myself of why you shouldn't act like that anymore, So I actually respect that authenticity. I think no matter what position we're in, we need to approach it authentically. You know what I mean? And how old were you when you were a Christian apologist?
So I was in my late 20s. So I was 20. I was about 28 when I really started to do it. Like, when we got back into faith, like, we were going through a family death at the time.
When you say we, who you?
Me and my partner, my wife at the time.
Okay.
We have a different marriage dynamic now, so we don't say husband and wife. We just say partner.
Okay,
it's better that way.
Gotcha.
So, but we just went all in. We went back. Because we had been shopping around for a church for it was almost a couple years up until that point, and it was my wife's aunt that had passed away. And we started watching more faith movies. Like, we were physically uncomfortable going to a church, because me and my partner are socially awkward people. So it's like, finding the right vibe was hard. So it was like, okay, let's watch a faith movie or something. So we watched, it was the first God's Not Dead. And it was like, yeah. So it was like, we just had this really good night watching the movie. We vibed with the movie really well. The music was really good. Like, we were not, like, I was always working and we were raising our kids. So it was like when it came to like what was mainstream, what was popular, what was Christian sounding, like we had no idea. We were so out of the loop. But like even as an atheist, I still have the Newsboys on my playlist. Like,
Do you
I'll
listen to
still,
them?
oh yeah, like I still like the sound. It's still good music. Like
Yeah.
I don't have to spiritually vibe with it to like the song. Like, um, but no, it was
So
but we went.
you have fond memories that are still with you of your Christian faith.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Do
Like
you
I
do you miss it?
sometimes, yeah, sometimes I do. I what was it? My cousin is, funny enough, where I live right now. He's a preacher at a Methodist church that's not even 5 miles from my house. And it's coincidence. We both grew up like almost 2 hours away from where we live right now. So it's like weird coincidental. Like we're here. Like I take my son to work on Sunday mornings, and I'm always passing his church service that he's starting. And it's like, yeah, I might want to check it out. I haven't been to a service in a while because I watched his sermon on Facebook because he posts them, and he has a positive, loving vibe to the sermon, and it's an actual thought out sermon. The sermons, when me and my partner went back to church, we went back to a missionary Baptist church. It was her family's church. It was very what's the word, conservative. That's how I can describe it. It's just very strict, just a very strict church, but very strict Baptist. Just think a Southern Baptist church, but in a smaller location. Like, but
So
the
on
sermon, but the
steroids.
yeah, so like the Bible study was, or Sunday school was something that was for me going to church more entertaining than the sermon, because my idea was I always have a thirst for knowledge. Like I have to know, and if I don't know, it's really going to bother me.
Yeah.
Like I have always felt a calling my whole life to teach. So I had volunteered to teach adult Sunday school. I didn't think the deacons were going to take me seriously because I had barely been in the church, like not even a year at that point.
Oh, they'll throw you in there.
Yeah, I was rusty, but like I rolled with it. I'm like, okay, because like it was like I was in a church where they were King James purist, like you had to read that version and no other version. They had very bad arguments for why they only use that version,
Yeah.
and it wasn't convincing for me. Like intellectually speaking, like I was a stargazer as a kid. Like I remember seeing the Hale Bopp comet in the late '90s, and I got to see that with my telescope.
I don't know either. Larry's looking at me. What is that? Describe that.
So there was a comet. It was in 1997 or 98. There was a big comet that flew by Earth. It was kind of like Halley's comet, but it was called the Hale Bopp comet. Now, if I want you guys to scratch your brains for the 90s, okay, there was a cult called Heaven's Gate that was waiting for the Hale Bopp comet to pass by Earth to collect their souls. It was a whole thing. So I didn't learn that until a couple years ago, like the exacts of that cult. But I remember seeing the comet, so it was like, oh man, that was dark for some people. But yeah, it was. The people, the church that I was at was they were young Earth people and like very anti-scientific people. And I've always had an analytical mind when it came to that kind of stuff.
Hey, Von Zoom. I
What?
hope you don't mind. Do you mind if I call you Von Zoom, by the way?
Call me Luke. That's my real name.
Luke. Okay, Luke. Sorry. Thank you. I should be polite and ask people their names, but I just call them by their TikTok handle just because that's who we are. But I hope you don't mind, but this is a live stream, and we've got a couple commenters, and I hope you don't mind that one of them asked you a question. Danielle Dunbar asked, how did you decide to become an atheist?
Okay. So it was actually because I was teaching. So I started teaching, and then that's when I decided, because I had a TikTok for like almost like a year at that point when I decided. This was like late 2020. It was right like during COVID and stuff. And I thought, I'm like, no, I can do this online too. Like I'll do like little videos, I'll do like little teachings, and I got the book I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist by Frank Turek. I
I've
read
read it. Yeah.
Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. Like I tried to read some decent books to intellectually ground the Bible, because I didn't know how to do it, because I had just gotten, read your Bible, pray more as the advice of the church. Like, it wasn't like my brain needed to wrap myself around the cosmos, because I was aware of the cosmos at a young age. So like I always had the bigger questions. It was so, but like when it came to me leaving, it had to do with the more I learned about the Bible. It was why I left. It was when I was learning more about like archaeology and the biblical composition itself. Like I was doing deep dives for hours and hours, just researching like where every single book of the Bible came from. Like, who was writing it? Like, where was it written? Like, what's the context around this story? Like, so, because when I was trying to read the Bible, not like it was written for me. I needed to read it as it was written, or I wasn't going to really understand it very well. So it's like I needed to know, like, the people who wrote the Torah, like, when are they writing this? What are they talking about? Why are they writing this? Like, other than like divine inspiration, like what's a motivation? And there's a lot of interesting history there. But the problem I found was a lot of stories were, possibly borrowed or using similar motifs, or understanding that at a certain point when you go back in time, people aren't telling history the way we tell history. The moral of the story is way more important than the historical accuracy of the story. So it's like a rhetorical goal sometimes is more important in an ancient story. So like you could take the what had happened was I had found out that, at least in my opinion, Noah's flood never happened. Like, that was the first thing. And then I'm like, okay, probably, because like as a Christian, I didn't think the Adam and Eve story was a literal story. I thought it was an allegory for something deeper about people. It was about our falling short from the get-go kind of story.
And it's
So it's
not
like,
something that, like, those two stories not being true didn't necessarily crush your faith at the time.
well, it started to make me rethink a lot of things. I was just starting to have more questions at that point. So it's like, so I went to a point where when it came to Noah's flood, I had watched an inspiring philosophy video, and his Mike Jones, the way he talked about it was the story was about a regional flood. And you can call it the world, because in an ancient context, those people didn't know how big the world was. To them, that was the whole world. So it was like I always had these little rationalizations I did for it to still be true, because like I was raised to think of it literally true, not allegorically true, not philosophically true. Like, I wasn't taught growing up different contexts or different genres that the Bible writes in. The Bible writes in so many different ways that it's impossible to take it literally, like all of it.
We have another
Like,
comment that I kind of like, but I actually was going to ask a question like this, but it's not exactly how the comment is. But how was your personal relationship with God? Like, tell me about what your personal relationship with God was like. Did you ever feel him speaking to you when you were, especially when you went to that Pentecostal church? Did you feel him talking to you, interacting with you in your daily life?
So I was raised with the idea of the fruit of the Spirit being how you connected with God. So for me, connecting with God had to do with charity. It had to do with helping people. It had to do with interacting with people and talking to people and listening to people. Like I could, like I would, when I would have worship, that would be a lot of my one-on-one time with God. I would pray a lot. I've had anxiety my whole life. So like, talking to Jesus was a big coping mechanism for me. I'm also a child of divorce, so I talked to God a lot as a kid, and it was more, because I always thought that if I'm if I'm showing other people love and I'm showing them what compassion looks like, and just to do it, just to make sure people are doing okay. And I'm not looking, and I wasn't raised to do charity to get into heaven either. It had to do with, that's how you show God love, was by loving your neighbor. That's how you loved God.
Fair.
Because me, loving God would be weird, because the way I always thought about God being this bigger than creation being, what's me singing a song to him supposed to do? Does he have an ego problem? Is he insecure about his day that he needs me to sing him a praise? He knows he's okay. He's asking, because I always thought God was asking more of me, not me asking more of God. It's like I had to do more. It was like God was, for me, my motivation. It was kind of like a fuel. It was like, the speed, kind of like
Um, well,
it was a move.
sorry. So we have a TikTok comment from Walkants. How do you approach spirituality and religion with your children?
Say again.
How do you approach spirituality and religion with your children?
So um I was open with my children when it came to me leaving faith, and my partner was too. And uh, my son has an interest in the Norse gods. My daughter has an interest in witchcraft. My youngest daughter isn't interested in spirituality, but they know what it is. They got the entire conservative youth church experience. I mean, they even did the Bible work stuff at school. They did this thing called LifeWise. They would get to leave school for a little bit during the day and go learn Bible stuff and church stuff. But it actually scared them a lot. It scared my daughters a lot. This idea of God actually frightened them, and it had nothing to do with how I describe God. It was no different than how we were described God as a kid. But telling, a Gen Z or a Gen Alpha kid that there's a dude that's constantly Big Brother watching you, that scares them. Like that whole concept of God seeing everything, like, scares them. But
What's
they
your
like it.
what's your view on Christianity now? Like, do you see yourself ever going back?
I've kept a lot of it with me. There's a lot of, like, the Sermon on the Mount, I still think is one of the, like, if it wasn't a literal story, it's one of the best, love letters to humanity you can write, and best way to, like, think about other people with respect and love. And I still think it's great. I still use the Sermon on the Mount in my day-to-day life. It's like I don't hold anger against my brother because it's a toxic feeling. Like the sermon on, like, looking at your brother with anger, you've already committed murder in your heart. Yeah, that's true. It's like, you might as well, if you want it to keep brewing, you can just give into that. But the whole I always took that as Jesus talking about self-control and understanding what a lack of self-control does to you. And that is still true, even if, Christianity is not true as a whole. Like, for me, if it's not, like, that is still true, like
And
that. But
it's
yeah.
so like, what about I'm sure, like, I have done enough interviews with unbelievers now that I know how you're going to answer this. And I've thought about this in private and stuff like this, but, I would imagine the fear of hell. Like, let's do the two part. Because in Christianity, that, Jesus claims to be the only way to heaven. You know that Bible verse where he says, I am the way, the truth, and the light. No one goes to the Father except through me. And I'm sure you've read that Bible verse a million times. You've crossed it over. And then when you decide to leave there, you've got to deconstruct that and the idea of hell first, or you cannot comfortably walk away from it. I have never, sorry. I have interviewed people that's like, I believe hell's real and I believe I'm going there and I believe it's eternal destruction. I don't care. I don't want to be there with God. I've met people I have interviewed people that have said that. So go ahead.
Mine's a little different, actually. So when we went back to my wife's family's church, And they were all about talking about, burning in hell. Like that was their mantra. Said that so much that filled it in. Like that was their imagery of hell was, fiery torture. So one of the first things I actually did, this was even before I started to do the teaching part, was I deconstructed the idea of hell because there was something very toxic about that idea. There was something wrong about that for me. It didn't feel right. It wasn't me thinking, ooh, that's unfair and I'm triggered. No, that just seems wrong. Like that seems like too simple of a reading of whatever scripture's actually saying. So I had to understand what hell was, where the idea of hell came from. So like that was a lot of the things I did research on. Like this concept of hell that we have now is third or fourth century. It's old. It's younger than like the Gospels per se. Like it's not an idea that's ironclad like during the time of the Gospels, but the idea of what the imagery when Jesus talks about Gehenna, this is a idea of like, hey, if you keep going down this path, you're going to go to like where Gehenna was where the child sacrifices to Molech happened in the Old Testament. Like he's talking about like, hey, if you keep down a path, you're on a path of self-destruction pretty much. Now you could take that literally and take that spiritually, like you're going to be on a path of destruction in the afterlife after, you pass from this one. Like that's your punishment because that's what you want. You want the path of destruction. But for me, it was always about a, an atmosphere that you create yourself. That's what I ended up viewing hell as. So I always had to take the idea of like, what do you got? I can see you pointing at me.
How do you say a concept that you create yourself? What does that mean exactly? Because to be honest with you, a lot of what you've said is exactly along the line of what my brother said. And, deconstruct is a new word, and I'm an old man, and my brother is close to my age. So when he walked away from the church, it wasn't called deconstructing. It was called just, I can't phantom this as what I've been taught my whole life.
Well, so for me, deconstruction, and I found the word because the people at my church never made a point to ask questions, just ask questions in general. That's all deconstruction really actually is. It's not a path to leaving faith. And I don't even like that that's the reputation that word has. I think that that's terrible.
Well, I'm sorry,
like,
but that's the only concept that I've heard it in, since we've been doing the podcast and, we have quote unquote deconstructionists, and that's kind of how they explain it. They've gotten so much knowledge from studying the Bible that they no longer find it, what word am I trying to use?
Reliable or whatever.
Not reliable, but relatable. Okay.
Yeah. You've heard me talk about deconstruction in my own personal journey. Like whenever I went through, like Von Zoom, I know you don't watch the whole shows and stuff, but I had a stint last year where I had some serious doubts about my faith, and I really, right here live on the show, I mean, I was really dealing with some personal struggles where I was probably on my way to moving out. And I used the word deconstruction in there because I think I everybody has to deconstruct. If you didn't do church properly in the right way, you can still be a Christian and deconstruct. You probably had to deconstruct some ideas from your youth and stuff like that. I
use a little bit different terminology. I mean, myself, I had to lose some of the baggage.
You don't like the word deconstruction, rules and huh?
Well, to me,
deconstruction is that.
It can actually be applied to anything. If I build something and then I tear it apart, then I have deconstructed what I constructed.
Mm-hmm.
That's my mentality, my understanding of the word. So certain words that we use nowadays to mean what they currently mean sometimes just escape my thought process, to be honest with you. And that particular word is a one of those trigger words, I guess.
Yeah, for Larry.
For me,
you gotta understand Larry's kind of like your more old school Pentecostal. When we first started doing this show, this is very difficult for him because like Larry's like Peter. He doesn't like hearing bad things about God. And he's got his sword sharpened and he's ready to chop people's ears off, And so whenever he hears that word deconstruction, he you know what I mean? It triggers something in him, like that.
What like I use my definition there, and I'm not trying to be rude. Please don't misunderstand me. But if you read the Bible and you started to gain knowledge from the Bible, and then you decided that part of this quote unquote religion should no longer be acceptable, such as your understanding of hell, okay, because of the way that the people at the church discussed hell. Yet Christ actually mentions in the Bible hell more times than he mentioned heaven. So, I mean, it certainly must be real, but that means that you've deconstructed the actual word, and by deconstructing the actual word, then you discount John 1:1, which said the word was in the beginning. So if the word was in the beginning, then you, from reading the word, have decided that it is null and void, is my understanding. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I'm trying to grasp what we're meaning here.
Okay, so when I was a Christian and I started doing deconstruction, I'm going to use this word because I'm not going at it from that mainstream perspective. I learned about deconstruction from Frank Turek, and the concept of it is it's all about not literally tearing it down. It's just taking it apart to check the pieces, and then you reconstruct after you have deconstructed, because there might be something your parents ever told you as a kid that's not true. Like, that's possible, right? So you can deconstruct an idea in case it's just a bad idea. In case, like, if someone in church said, let's go with Leviticus 18:22 and start, stoning people, you would have to deconstruct, the Torah a little bit to understand the context, understand what's description and prescription, the difference between those two things in the Bible. So, like, there's a lot of things that you just can't. It's what I was saying earlier. You can't just do a plain-faced reading of the Bible and not have some confusion out of that. But what I was saying earlier about hell was, I didn't say a concept you make up yourself. It's an atmosphere that you make yourself. Hell is when you take away, in the biblical sense, God, or this idea of being connected to the source of love, and you give into self-pleasure and self-importance and narcissism, you create a very toxic atmosphere. You create a place where things aren't, valued the same way. Everything's objectified. People are objectified. Nothing's cherished, and it just becomes more and more empty. You get to the point where you're just going in a wrong direction spiritually, like the people in Gehenna in the Old Testament times, sacrificing their kids to Moleg. It's the same thing. You going down a path that you don't get to come back from because you have given in all the way to it. So I always thought, if the idea was, if you don't want God in the afterlife, you're not going to want him in this life. So what hell becomes is, hell is what life is like without God while you're alive. And I would imagine you wouldn't exist after you die, because you don't want that. You don't want to live forever. You don't want to have eternal life. So why would you exist eternally?
What is your belief on that? So you have a choice between eternal life and not?
I like that was my thought then. I don't know about the afterlife now.
I don't
I
know
have
about
no
the afterlife either, personally. I mean, I've never been there either.
like, I like what my idea at the time was you're choosing God. If you're choosing the path, following, Jesus's teachings, if you're following that path, that's the road to eternity. Like I always thought of eternal life, and like when it's your mortal life, that's, a life full of compassion, full of love. That's what that feeling is supposed to be, and it just keeps going even after you pass. But if I'm a believer and I don't want that, like say I actually leave and I say I don't want that, then eternity after I pass, I should cease existing. That would be the punishment, I would imagine. If God was going to do that, it would be I would burn myself out in life, and when I pass, I annihilate. That would make the most sense. That would be,
That would
I
make
would
the
say,
most sense to you, right?
it would be more just than eternal torture forever for something that's not eternal. Like it's the idea of infinite punishment for a finite crime kind of thing. Like logically, it doesn't follow. It wouldn't make sense for God to do that. If Jesus pays the penalty for sin, it's paid for. So why would God have to punish you twice? Why would God do a second punishment? Why would you still get punished if Jesus already took it? And if you're not accepting that gift, then you get nothing out of it, like nothing at all. Like I always just took it as, God washes his hands of you.
Actually,
Like
I don't think I've ever heard that theory before. Well, I've heard people say that the annihilationism or whatever, but never put an actual theological reason behind it. I've got a production team really wants me to read this comment for some reason. That's just not taking it off. It says, Denise on TikTok says, I believe Earth is hell and demons in human skin. Thank you, Denise.
So if demons are in human skin,
I'm kidding. I don't know.
I got a question though.
Well, hold
Okay,
on. I got a question first.
I got a question concerning the statement.
Okay.
Okay, if Earth is hell, and then demons are in human skin, why do we need the human skin part? Would they not all be demons? I mean, where did the human come in?
I think what she was saying is that demons can pose as human. I don't think she's saying all humans are demons. At least that's what I took from it. Denise, if you're still in here, clarify. Also, hold on. There's that Bible verse that says, be careful how you treat people because you might be entertaining angels, right?
Yeah.
It would lead you to believe that angels can be in human skin.
Well, also,
so does that mean can demons?
Did not Christ cast out demons?
Out of that guy, yeah. Out of the
technically
dude, yeah.
speaking, there are humans that allow the demons to overtake them.
So my personal opinion on what Von Zoom was saying was that I believe that the earth still contains attributes of God, and we get even though, like, for me, my personal opinion, I know you don't believe, but like, for example, I believe that you get to experience some of the goodness of God to this day. And then whenever we pass away, if we die without Jesus, then we go to a place that is completely null and void of any attributes of God whatsoever. Now, that's just my personal opinion. But what was I going to say? I had something else to say right after that. What was I going to say? I lost it. Anyway, there was another comment down there that was asking Von Zoom. Go to the chat, please. Boy, you guys are on the money here, huh? I'm just kidding. Okay, it says, do you feel like your intellect prevents your ability to exercise faith? From Christian Rochelle Smith. Do you feel like your intellect prevents your ability to exercise faith?
No, because, and that also depends on what you mean by faith, right? So are we talking faith as in just trust? I exercise faith all the time, like, I have faith in my partner to, trust them financially and romantically, I have a faith there. I have a faith in borderline faith in other drivers on the road when I go out and drive on the road, but when it comes to spiritual faith, intellect doesn't have anything to do with it. And I know that, and I'm not saying that to be harsh or rude. I don't think that's the part of your brain that's going on when you exercise faith. It has nothing to do with intellect. Like when we have faith in something, it's not about having the scientific data for it. It's not what it's about for some reason. Like I've seen people have an altar call at their first time in church, and then they tell people, God is real because of science X, Y, and Z. It always comes from the utility of faith and what it's used for. And like through my own research, like religion, faith, it's something that humans have done since the beginning to cope with for me, it seems it's a way to cope with the existential dread of death. It's like we as a species, we are aware that we're going to die, and we actually know it, not like other animals, know, but they don't, they don't have a will or something like that, like we do. They're not planning for it. But I don't know. It's not,
They have
like,
instincts that's trying to help them avoid it, but like, well, I'm going to ask you a question real quick, because this is on my head. Like, because for me personally, death, I don't even really, like, I just don't want to go to hell. That's my number one. That's my number one, right? Don't want to go to hell. Not a place it seems like I want to go, right? But when I think about it, like, me personally, Christianity doesn't give me comfort. It's telling me to do something that's against my own personal desires, if that makes sense. Like, I have personal desires that are contrary to what I'm being taught in the church. It's telling me that those desires that I have are wrong, they're not good, and Jesus doesn't want you to do it, right? And I'm like, well, if I didn't have this Jesus guy, if I didn't believe that he was the way, the truth, and the life, and he didn't say, follow me and become a disciple of him, then I could do all this stuff. And I really wish I could do all this stuff. You see what I'm saying? And that's kind of how my deal is, And so when I think about that, religion doesn't really it does give me comfort. The more I push into it, the more I become closer with Jesus. It does give me a comfort and a peace now that I'm getting closer to him and I'm actually seeing the actual reasons of why I should follow him. But religion oftentimes goes against our personal desires. Does that make sense?
I think, like, I would say, yeah, because there's the discipline aspect of a lot of religion that is about self-denial. It's about self-control. It's about structure. And I also think that the biggest utility of religion is the social structure that it gives. It gives you a framework to work with when it comes to morality, when it comes to social laws and certain things like that. It has a big utility in that. But I also think that taking away the faith aspect, I still think that people would have the same opinions about certain things. Like, I still think that people would find murder atrocious, or they would still find, SA to be bad, even if, like, there wasn't a Bible saying that was bad. Because, I mean, depending on where you're at in the Bible, it's going to be actually hard to, like, that's one of the things I do with my content is I kind of break apart a lot of conservative narrative that logically doesn't follow for me. That's like what a lot of my content is lately, because I still think that faith and, like, politics and social structures are very interconnected things. So, like, if I'm talking about one thing, I kind of have to talk about the other thing at the same time that's connected to it, because it's extended out like that. But I also think that that's something that I feel bad for Christians about, is the idea of that tribalism. So it's like, if someone's a non-believer, it's about broad stroking Christians. All Christians share a brain apparently on X, Y, and Z. Like, oh, this church has a really bad opinion about people, or they do bad things to people. Therefore, I'm going to treat every Christian that way. And I think a lot of people who leave faith have an anger towards something,
such as church hurt.
No, not necessarily. For me, it wasn't church hurt. My angry atheist thing was I was mad at myself. I had a lot of anger towards myself more than anybody.
Because you feel like you got duped? Like you feel like you were duped?
A little bit, yeah. And for me, because when it came to the question someone asked, does my intellect prevent faith? No, because what faith was one of, looking back, it was a big coping skill for my anxiety. Like I'm still going to therapy. I'm still doing my medicine treatments and stuff, like to deal with my anxiety and depression still. And it's not the same. It's not the same as when I had faith. Like I can physically, mentally, emotionally feel the difference. Like it is not the same.
Sorry, go ahead. I got a question for you. I have ADD, and whenever a question pops in my head, I gotta get it out there.
You gotta just pop it, man. It's fun.
Okay, so do you remember what the parable of the sower is?
The what?
The parable of the sower.
No, I don't remember that one.
Okay. I'm going to remind you because I talk about this a lot. You remember Jesus spoke in parables and stuff like that, and this one's called the parable of the sower. And the parable of the sower, I won't tell you the whole parable of the sower. You can read it whenever you get off here or whatever. But it's basically there's this concept in the parable of the sower that a seed gets planted, and some seeds fall on rock, some seeds fall on shallow soil, and some seeds fall on good soil. And that there's going to be some sort of enemy essentially that comes and tries to uproot these seeds as they're planted, and that only the seeds that are planted in good soil will last, and the enemy won't be able to pull them up, or a crow or whatever it was. I can't remember what it was. I'd have to read it again. Okay, so when I look at that, that tells me that there is an enemy that goes against our beliefs. And that's been very true for me, especially since I've gotten in ministry. There's something obviously in the spiritual world. And I say obvious because it's obvious for me. It's one of the things that Coco really leaned into. He saw the spiritual attacks in his life whenever he started in ministry. It's that was evidence for him. And I say that because everybody views evidence differently. And so it was evidence for him, and you may not think it's evidence, but he did. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
And so this tells me that there's this enemy that's constantly trying to uproot what those seeds that God has planted in your life. Now you say you were mad at yourself that you were duped over Christianity. What if, just entertain the thought with me, what if that you're getting duped by Satan, by an enemy that's trying to keep you from a calling or purpose that you have on your life that God has placed there? Entertain that thought with me.
It's hard to entertain that thought only because I never viewed the devil that way. That was never my opinion growing up about the devil. My church, my Methodist church, didn't teach that about Satan at all. That they weren't sensationalists like that, and that's just not how they taught it, because you were responsible for your actions. They were very Torah about cause and effect and who was responsible for what.
Me too, by the way. I just wanted to say that, get that out there. I believe, and I'll even be an extremist in this and say that I don't think Satan has ever made me do any one thing one time ever. And I'll be an extremist about that. And how I view Satan is that Satan plants his own seeds, and then you've got to decide whether you're going to take those seeds and actually act upon what he's trying to get you to do. So Satan will try to get you to open a door or try to get you to do something, and then you have to make the choice on whether to do it. Because I believe that Satan's not going to have to answer for your sins whenever. It's going to be that stands before God, not you in particular. You get what I'm saying, like the person, the individual. And so, like I said, I'll be an extremist in that and say that I don't believe that Satan has ever made me do one thing ever, not one time. Larry?
And that also goes along with one of the other parables that Jesus talked about was the enemy sowing the thistles and
the parable of the sower. Yeah. So
he's the enemy sows that into your field of wheat. if you
trying
will.
to get your seeds to where they're not, they don't grow the way that God intended to. That's why I've always looked at that parable and go, whoa, like they're really, apparently there is something out here that is trying to keep you from your purpose.
So what I've been doing with because I'm still deconstructing things.
Yeah.
I don't have faith in a God because I do not personally see the evidence to support it anymore, or the necessity for it anymore. But I understand why people do, but I still want to understand the Bible. I still have a interest in those things, in the history, in the context, and because there's just so much history in the Bible, the time periods that they're talking about, the time periods that they were actually written in are just as interesting as the time periods that they're talking about. And it's just interesting history because it affects the world very deeply. And we can see that in the news. We can see that in our day-to-day lives. It's just affected, civilization. So it's still interesting because there's a lot of things that I never learned growing up that I learned now. That's very interesting about the Bible. The thing that really made me almost stop believing, or the thing that was I was leaning into unbelief. What really got me there was evidence for the Exodus. That was the one for me when it came to really looking at the history of that and comparing it biblical text, archaeology to sources from around the region, things like that. It wasn't enough for me. When I was finding out, because I'm not saying this as I'm not speaking as a matter of fact, because this is archaeology stuff. We're talking about probabilities now. We're not talking about super matter of facts. But when it comes to a lot of biblical claims, there's not the archaeology for it. And when it came to when I found out Adam and Eve probably wasn't literally real, Noah's Ark was an embellishment of something else. And then when it came to the Exodus, it was just okay, that may not have happened either.
Vaughn, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we are getting, okay, now we're not. As soon as I interrupt you, we don't have feedback anymore. I'm so sorry. Oh no, it was
Yeah,
growing.
it was getting louder. It was like an airplane went over him.
Yeah, there's an airplane sound getting louder and louder, and then as soon as I interrupted, it just stopped. He moved his hand and it stopped. So I don't know if something was interfering with you. I want to share a little bit kind of how I've came out of my little deconstruction part there, because I started to question the Bible as well. And so when I look into it, I look at and say, okay, at some point in a Christian person's life, if they're going to be a Christian for the rest of their life, you're going to have to decide that the Bible's true. You can't just sit there. You can't just sit there and question it every day. Does that make sense? Well, the reason why you say why not is because how am I going to grow and move forward as a Christian if I'm questioning whether it's true all the time? Now, hold on. I will not say that I have complete knowledge that I believe that the flood's true and the Exodus and all this stuff that you're saying, whether it's allegory or not. I would say I lean towards I believe those things are true. I don't see why they would just put stories like that in there for no reason. But I don't know, right? But what I'm saying is I believe the Bible is true, and at some point you got to come to that conclusion. And really the one thing that I do not break on, and Paul even talks about this in the New Testament, the one thing that every Christian has to come to a final conclusion about is, did Jesus rise from the dead? That's the number one question. Paul even says, if Jesus didn't rise from the dead, Christianity is null and void. It's not true. Everybody should pack their bags and go home, right? And so that's the one thing that Christians should hang their hat on. All that other stuff, I say, okay, did Jesus rise from the dead? Yes, I believe that. If I believe that, then I need to push forward and move forward into figuring out what this God has in store for me and what he wants me to do. And it doesn't sound like it's going to be full of Lamborghinis and cars and money and fun and stuff like that. I think that it's going to be a mission, if that makes sense. There's something that he wants me to do. And so that's the one thing. I should say, I haven't just opened the Bible and said, okay, without reading this and studying it into detail, I just believe this whole thing's true. I should change it to, did Jesus rise from the dead? At some point, every Christian has to come to that one conclusion and say, did Jesus rise from the dead? And if the answer is yes, then I'm going to wake up every day, choose to serve Christ, and grow in him every single day. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense. That was doing apologetics, like the idea of Christianity does rest in the resurrection. I did agree with that when I was a Christian. That was something that I hearkened on a lot, because it was for me more important than a global flood or a talking snake. It was way more important than that to me, because for me, the way the Bible always came off, even as a believer growing up, it was like the further back you go, the more fantastical it sounds, because you're furthest away from the events. So it's just going to sound that way. And I was okay with that, because that meant for the resurrection, that made it more plausible. It made it way more plausible than a talking snake, because it was a lot sooner. There was more people talking about this thing. Like, I will admit, as a non-believer, there is evidence for that, for sure. Like, I will not, discredit Peter or John or, Matthew or Mark, like the people that the Gospels were based on, that told these stories, that knew Jesus. Like Paul, like if I was going to deny that people believed in a resurrection at the time where Jesus supposedly did, I would have to ignore so many things. Like, that's something I don't like within the atheist community, is this really weird need for not only for Christianity to not be true, but hey, Jesus didn't exist either. Hey, let's just throw everything out because it has to not be true. But that's how it always comes off to me. Like, I had a phase like that for a while, I'll admit, but intellectually, that's just very dishonest. Like, you have Paul talking about, Peter talking about people who knew Jesus, like knew him in the flesh. Like, Paul, I don't think had actually met Jesus while he was alive. Like, he knew of him. But I want to say, didn't Paul have a hand in, was it Philip's execution?
Stephen,
thank you.
Really? Yes.
The one where Jesus was looking down on Stephen? He incited the riot.
No, Yes, he incited the riot against Stephen and held their coats while they threw the stones.
Can you imagine the guilt that he felt?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's why part of the reason that Paul had to go through everything that he went through.
Sure it is.
Man.
I mean,
so Jesus rose from the dead, Vaughn. I'm sorry, Luke. Jesus rose from the dead. By the way, I read Luke today. I read a little bit of Luke, I should say. Jesus rose from the dead. What does that mean for you?
So it would really depend. Like, so for me, someone rises from the dead. That's interesting.
Yeah, it sure is.
like I would find that fascinating. Like, I'm a comic book nerd. Like, that kind of stuff is awesome to me. Like, hey, yeah. Like, I as an atheist, I have a few unconventional beliefs that aren't rooted in they're borderline paranormal beliefs, but like I have this idea about the movie Unbreakable kind of being true. Like, there's physical, like, abnormalities throughout time, throughout history. Maybe some of our legends get based on these special people that just fly under the radar. I think that that's a cool idea for for superhero origins or like mythological tales. I think that that's cool. Like, that would be a plausible thing for me to think would happen. But what the resurrection would mean, it would really depend on Jesus's mission. And if the resurrection is completely real, if these attestations from people actually line up? If this actually happened, was there an empty tomb? Did he appear for 40 days performing miracles? Was there a conversation with Thomas? Like all those things, if all that's true, then I still wonder what the mission is. Like, is Jesus here for me? Is Jesus dying just for the Jews? Is he just the Messiah for them? Is he the Messiah for the whole world? Like my issue starts where we have a lot of gaps in time in the storytelling. Like have no problem in thinking that people believe Jesus came back or people even saw him. Like I'll even throw that one in there. I fully believe that Paul saw Jesus and the way that he says that he described it. Because me as a non-believer, I would have to discount all my conversations with Jesus at the same time. Like I can say as a non-believer, I used to have a relationship with Jesus. I used to talk to Jesus every day. You know, I had a prayer journal. Like it was just as real as me talking to you right now, and that's how real it was for me. So like when people have these spiritual moments, those are things that you cannot discredit and you can't invalidate that. So like Paul having, you know, if Paul's story on the road to Damascus is a true story, then hey, that's a real experience for him. He, you know, he saw Jesus, he got a mission, and he clearly fulfilled a mission. Like he spent the rest of his life, you know, spreading that around everywhere. Did I never remember, did Paul ever make it to Spain? Remember Paul wanted to go to Spain.
I don't think there's any accounts of it. I don't think there's
Didn't he
any
make it to
accounts.
Macedonia?
I don't remember.
Is not Macedonia in Spain?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Macedonia is.
I don't know why. I don't know why this is.
He cut you off. I didn't hear you say it again.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I need to hear it.
Macedonia is right above Greece.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Just a theory. Just your theory. What do you think the thorn in Paul's side was? Do you know what I'm talking about? Paul asked God to remove a thorn from his side 3 times, and God responded with, "My grace is sufficient." And I just figured somebody that had a relationship or had studied the Bible had a theory on it. I'm just every Christian, every person has a theory on it. So,
No, I actually used to have a very specific thought about this. This had to do with guilt. The thorn in the side is guilt.
okay, yeah,
The thorn in the side had to do with you're saved by, you know, the grace of God. So you're wanting. I think a lot of people when they you know get saved or they commit their lives to Jesus, they're expecting a really weird transformation to happen. I think they have these. It's like, you know, fireworks and magic going on for some reason, but there's still work you need to do on yourself.
Amen.
Not about like, oh, I got baptized and I come up, you know, a new body and therefore everything's great. And I it's not like any of my actions haven't happened up until this point. I'm still like Paul. I can imagine if Paul had a hand in Stephen dying, a thorn in his side would be a guilty conscience. It's like, even if you're saved by God, like there was still things I felt bad about all the time.
yeah.
Like I back in the bad things I would do and just have a guilt about it. It's natural and it's not something God will take away from you. Like, and as a Christian, I never thought God would take it away. It's like, no, why would God do that?
It's kind of like spiritual scars, huh? So you'll remember.
Need to remember the pain. You have to remember, like how you were saying earlier, you left that video of you up because you needed to see that. That's a thorn. Something that you need to remember, you need to feel that might be uncomfortable to watch no matter how many times you watch it, but you need that because it keeps you humble. The thorn would keep you humble. That's how I always took it.
Yeah.
Because I heard it was a Mel Gibson line about sobriety, about hugging the cactus. And it was about, you have to sometimes, it's about embracing the ugly side of yourself to understand where you came from, to understand what you are not anymore. It's like what you're trying not to be. It's, you know, it's something uncomfortable about yourself. But I never thought that God was supposed to remove that. because that's why God said my grace is enough for you. I'm like, well, yeah, you got to live with that, not God. He didn't make your choices. So
Yeah.
it's like that's so.
Okay. Before we go to the rounds, do we have any stray comments that we have?
I would like
No?
to address Danny's one comment there.
Okay.
The larger one there. So you up top there, that one. Yes, please.
Oh, and I forgot to address that.
Yeah. So the more you read the word, you really didn't find God in the middle of each story speaking to you personally?
No, I was not taught to read the Bible that way. No.
Why? I mean, well, I guess you can't answer that question. If you weren't taught, you weren't taught. The way that I read it.
Why I was taught that way. The reason was because if you're reading the Bible, right, and you're reading a story about Jesus, or you're reading a story about Moses or something, the way I was taught was you're not supposed to interject yourself in the story because that didn't happen to you.
May I ask you, by the Methodist or by the Baptist that you spoke about earlier, or the Pentecostals? Which one was it?
It was the Methodist Church taught me that one. It was about you're not supposed to interject yourself into the story because the story's not about you.
Well, I mean, I've heard this saying, and I can relate to this in some cases, but have you ever heard anybody say that the whole Bible is for you, but the whole Bible isn't to you? You know,
Yeah.
I've heard that saying before, and I kind of agree with that. There's some passages I read through there, and I'm like, well, this isn't really addressing to what I'm doing right now. This isn't for me right now. Now, I do believe that the Word of God is alive, and that and literally alive. I mean, Jesus Christ claimed to be the Word. And so
the Bible says that he was.
Yeah. And so I believe that it is alive. And so it can mean different things at different times. I've had it happen in my own life. Coco even saw it one time where I had read something many years ago, and God gave me a revelation of it in the truck one day. I was laying down in the truck, and I woke up, and I was like, oh my God, God gave me a revelation. So that is that evidence that I need to see that word is alive, and it means different things at different times, or maybe not different things, but it can apply in different places at different times. So hold on, before we get to the rounds, I want to say hi to Leslie Glass if she's still watching. She goes to church with us. And Roger Brown, good to see you. This is Real Food, he said, and he is the word. And then also the person that asked you earlier that if you believe that knowledge impedes in your relationship, they also said a comment after. You can pull it up so he can see it. They said, I only asked, you're extremely smart. I wondered if you need for fact and knowledge may prevent you from trusting the word of God and having faith in its validity.
No, like, so the thing that holds me up, like when we were talking about like asking, like, do I have a fear of hell? Like if I was going to be afraid of a fire, the fiery version of the Christian hell, I would actually need to start worrying about the hells of other religions too. Because like if I'm going to hell in Christianity, well, I'm going to hell in Islam also. I might be in a painful torture cycle in Hinduism or something, or I also have these other things to worry about. But I always thought that the gift of salvation was the eternal part, and if you didn't accept the gift, you didn't get eternity. So like I wouldn't say no. It's like trusting the word of God for me just means more than just reading it and saying, okay, this is true. That doesn't do a whole lot if the word is not very clear about certain things. Like if this is a story about, the Israelites leaving Egypt, that's going to have like there's different things going on than what's going on in the gospel. Like just different things are happening. And there's a lot of weird history in the Bible that's not really, applicable to today. Like there's just things we don't do anymore. There's concepts that we don't use anymore because they're like frankly dated. Like if we actually went by a lot of like biblical marriage, it's very much about literal ownership of another human being. and it's not a love unit that we've built in modern times around marriage, but marriage itself has a messy history too. But I'm just rambling now. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well, okay, go ahead.
We're going to go in the
Sorry.
rounds, Larry. We're at 137. And last thing we need is a 16-minute Larry rant right here, okay? I'm just kidding. You're going to get your chance to rant right here, bud. No, I'm kidding. So what this is, Luke, is this is the rounds. It's something we do at the end of the show, every show. And we go around and each one of us say something to you in closing. Probably get a little preachy here. I usually cry for no reason. I'm just kidding. And then you, because you're our guest, you'll get the final say. I'll go first and then Larry goes. So normally we just say something, but I kind of want to ask you a question. And I'm not saying that I'm gonna pray for you, but let's say there was something I could pray for you right now. And if it happened, you would come back to God. Give me something to pray to you about, or pray for you about. Like if something, like is there a relationship needs to be restored, or if you were like, man, I would really like Zach to pray for me about this, or even if it didn't have anything to do with you, what would it be?
I I wake up in the morning with anxiety sickness.
Okay.
Every morning. Like I retch every single morning. It's just really bad and it's really painful.
I've had that before. I've never talked to anybody about it before. And it's literally on my forearms, and my forearms tense up and it feels like my fingers are curling in, and I knew it had to do with anxiety. But wow, thank you for saying that, man. That gave me some clarity. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
But no, like if that's something you want to pray for me for, Zach, I wouldn't mind feeling less dread during the day all the time.
Would it be if I prayed for you like right now? Would that
won't make me uncomfortable?
It won't make you uncomfortable?
You feel the need to, man. This is your podcast. If you need to pray, go for it.
No. So how I believe this podcast is this podcast is designed for you. And that's genuinely how I view it as a podcast for the unbeliever. And so I don't want to do anything that makes you uncomfortable at all. So this is literally your choice.
Okay.
And even if you said don't pray for me after this, I would not. I don't want to make you uncomfortable in any way. So
you pray for me after this, that's fine.
Okay. All right. I will. Dude, I just want to say that, like, sometimes conversations with agnostic atheists get a little difficult, and it's hard not to get debatey. It really is. But I love your authenticity. That's the one word that's kind of coming through for you, is that you live authentically. And sometimes it is difficult to authentically follow Christ. It is difficult, and I will admit that. It's hard, especially in today's day and age. And I'll admit that myself, because it's just difficult, man. So I get it. I am going to pray for your anxiety. We're going to get in a circle. I am going to pray for it, and I'm going to believe that God's going to deliver you from it. And dude, I love you. Thank you so much for coming on here and giving us this opportunity. We don't take it lightly, man. It's something that it's hard to do. So thank you for being open and vulnerable. I appreciate you. Larry, go ahead.
And the whole room took a deep breath. No, I appreciate you being on here, and I do understand where you're coming from in a roundabout way. Because my brother, and we actually interviewed my brother in
episode 4 or something?
6.
6?
Yeah, I think it was 6. And my brother decided to be an agnostic atheist, even though, raised in the same house. We were both raised Pentecostal. We were both taught, every story in the Bible. Yet his path took him away from God, and my path took me into the world. Quite frankly, I got married at 18 and ran, and I didn't come back to the Lord until I was 54, 55. So, long absence. if you will. So my passion now burns bright. I've been fully all in for 7, 8 years now, and it's a lot sometimes to understand, and it's a lot to get over past the world, and just a single relationship between me and Jesus. And I find Jesus as the Bible itself it says the Word was with God in the beginning. It says that the Word became flesh and walked among us, which represents Christ. It means that by having the Word, i.e. the Bible, I have a physical representation of Christ that I can relate to. I also have several different versions, so, I go back and forth. I'm not a Hebrew scholar or a Greek scholar, so I don't bother with that because I don't need to, quite frankly. I trust in the Word, and then I trust in my relationship with Christ, and Christ corrects me as I go. So I feel conviction when I'm doing something wrong, so that it's like, like my mom used to slap me to correct me kind of thing. Sometimes I need Jesus to hit me upside the back of the head so that he gets my attention. So, no, that's not the way I needed you to go. This is the way I need you to go. And I fully trust in that. But Hebrews 11:1 says that faith is the confidence of what we hope for that will actually happen. It can give us assurance about things we cannot see. The whole version of that says, trusting in the things that we cannot see. And I do not see God. I do not see Jesus, but I definitely can feel the direction that Christ gives me in so many different ways in my life now, where I discounted that numerous times when I was in the world. And a few times out of my fits of anger, I know without a doubt that I was on the verge of killing somebody. Oh. I mean, like on the
You gotta watch words like that when we're live, buddy. You're gonna get us BANNED.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, you're okay.
Well, what am I supposed to say about it?
You're supposed to say unalived for that word.
Seriously.
I'm not kidding.
I am way too old for this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. I seriously wanted to unalive somebody.
There you go, buddy. Good job.
And I felt, I felt as though Christ, even then, when I could not even hear his voice, Christ reminded me what would happen if I followed through. My children did not need to have a father that was in prison for that. My mom did not need to have to go through that in her part of life. In all of that, I trusted that and walked away from it to cool off instead of reacting in my flesh, what my flesh was screaming at me to do, So through that, even then I know that he was with me because he had a plan for me that I did not comprehend then, but I do now. There are things that I walk through in this world that I can use to talk with people such as yourself. My brother, I can talk with my brother without walking and condemning him on his viewpoint in all of this. It's not needed. I don't need to do that. My direction is strictly for me. Now, I'm going to address the marriage issue. I understand, but my biblical view of marriage is totally different. I am to value my wife. I am to love my wife so much so that I'm willing to give my life for her. And she is my helper. She is my direction. So I value her in a way that keeps my viewpoint straight on that. But because I've dedicated my marriage to the Lord, even though when we originally got married, we were married in a biker bar, okay? And then on our 5th anniversary, we had the opportunity to get married here at the church, and in the view of our friends and family from the church as well, that we stood before each of them and we said, I am allowing you to love God more than you love me. And we both said that to each other. And our direction was to put God in the middle of our marriage. And ever since then, our marriage has changed dramatically. We have our life has changed dramatically. We're both completely all in, sold out. You know, am I a preacher? No. Am I a minister? Yes, because I ministered wherever I go, and I must. I just have that need to. There's a lot of people out there that I get an opportunity to speak with that don't share my viewpoint, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. I don't have to beat them over the head with the Bible. I may offer them one.
And then hit them with it when they don't accept it.
I may offer them one, but I'm not there. My shirt literally says "Love like Jesus," and if I can focus my life on loving like Jesus, then that is what I am set to do. Faith involves trust that God is working in the unseen spiritual world. Okay,
He's still got a Bible too.
Still got one.
Use my study Bible.
Awesome. I actually use every man's Bible.
This is the Arthur Study Bible.
Oh, MacArthur. I have one at home.
Yeah.
Is that
like
John
that.
MacArthur?
I also got a Schofield at home.
Yeah, so this one, this is in the New King James translation. It's really good. It's pretty close to, because I wanted to read the New King James because it was more modernized on the text, so I could understand some of the words a bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Like I knew how to read King James, but for me, it was just like, this isn't 1605. We don't actually need to talk like this.
We don't use thous and those anymore. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, so, and I liked John MacArthur. He puts a lot of good context in the verses and the different words, like how certain like Greek or Hebrew words are actually translated. So it's a really good read still. So like I still use it. So
well, when I first started using the NLT version or the NIV version, because I was raised in King James versions, I had to go to the New King James version to understand what they were trying to relate to me. So there was a lot of that at first. Now I primarily, as my carry Bible, as my study Bible, I use the NLT, and it's the commentary in it. It is the direction and the information that backs it up with this scripture and that scripture. And then there are still times that I've got every app on my Bible for different versions. So if I need to, right then I can pull it up, with the New King James, so I can comprehend what I'm trying to say, because that's what I knew for 50 years. So, it's kind of different when you start messing with the other and you see words, their belief of what this word is versus what this word is. And they're slightly, sometimes a little bit askew in my head,
Mm-hmm.
So I have to kind of level it out. But I do certainly appreciate you coming on tonight and having a nice discussion.
Did you read your Bible verse?
I did.
Okay, good. Okay, Luke, the floor is all yours for the final say.
I just want to thank you guys for having me on and having conversation. This is really important to me. I believe in, when I first started doing atheist stuff on TikTok, I was doing debates and harsh conversations, but over time, I started using my lives as a way to talk to other people of other faiths and understand something. Maybe like I've met so many different kinds of Christians than the kind of Christians I knew when I was in church. I've learned healthier theologies. I've learned, just other ways that people do it. And I think that having dialogue between different people, especially people in the same country, especially people that might be maybe opposed, they need to talk. They need to have a conversation without debating, because debates turn into a conversation about nothing. And I know that one sounds harsh, but this is what I mean, and I think you might understand. If you debate somebody long enough about something in the Bible, you're going to end up arguing about the definition of a word.
Mhm.
And then the word debating about has nothing to do with what you guys were talking about. And I think it turns into a colossal waste of time.
Yeah, it turns into a pride contest and not trying to get to the truth.
Yeah. And then, like, I think after a point, the truth isn't important to somebody, because, like, if I was in a debate structure, it's like, hey, if you're debating like the resurrection of Jesus, like, someone will take, yes, it happened. Then the other person's approach is Jesus didn't even exist. And it's like, that's not looking at the truth. That's not looking at, real things. If you're going to put a blinder on, at least admit that you're doing that. Like, I think that's something that I think a lot of non-believers do a lot. They're not acknowledging publicly that they put blinders on when they read things or when they debate, or, that they have a goal too. And I just wish there was just more honesty. And I'm really glad that you guys let me on and listen to me. Like, I didn't know what to expect, so I'm really happy. It was a really nice conversation. You guys have been nothing but polite, so I really appreciate it. So that's all I got to say.
All right, brother. Hey, man, like I said, it was refreshing. I hope we stay in contact. Maybe if I see you on live, I'll stop by. And then I do lives. I do lives every day. I've been doing lives every day. If you happen to see me and you want to pop in just to say hi, I'll send you a link just like this, and we can pop in and talk again sometime.
Oh, for sure, man. I'd love to come back.
Okay, cool. Take care, brother.
Thank you, Luke.
Yeah. See you, Larry. See you, Zach.
See ya. Man, I'm just super grateful for that experience, man. Like, normally I've been getting kind of I was actually talking to Angela about this today. And do you mind if I share what happened today with the phone call? We don't have to say who it was, but so Angela today got a phone call from someone that she basically had an opportunity to minister to. And she hit the how do you say this in Christian terms? The button that sends them to the voicemail. How do you say that in Christian terms? Because it's the beep beep button in non-Christian. You hit the button, the ignore button. There you go.
Ignore button.
It's called something else in the world, Larry. Just don't
know,
worry
and
about
I
it.
don't care.
I know. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
All right.
Okay. But what I'm saying is she hit the button for it to go to voicemail, right? And then whenever she hit the button, go to voicemail, she goes, ugh, like that. And I go, you need to call her back.
I would have anyway.
And she goes, okay. She goes, okay. She calls her back, and the girl ended up just kind of like asking for money and stuff like that. And of course, we didn't give her money as someone that's dealing with addiction and stuff like that. And she hung up the phone, and I was like, I'm just now starting to get this, that we need to look at stuff like this as opportunities that God's giving us, opportunities to minister. And the reason why you look at opportunities is because Satan's tool is to get you so wrapped up in yourself that you don't see what God's trying to do through you.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? And I remember that one day we were doing a roof. Coco, you were there. We were doing a roof. You weren't there in the truck with me when this happened, but Coco and Angela can testify that whenever I did a roof, I was in pain. I was hurt. I was grumpy by the end of the day, and I didn't care about nothing but leave me alone. I'm leaving.
Is that when you fell off the roof?
It's probably before, but yeah. I was probably in a better mood after I fell off the roof because I was like, hey, I should have died, and I didn't. But anyway, so I remember one day I was driving home, and I pull up on this stop sign, and there's these people pushing this car out of the way. And I go, what are you doing? Get out of the way. Gosh, dang it. You guys are in the way. Get the heck out of the way. I can't believe you're sitting in the way. And then I kicked out of it. I go, whoa. It didn't even cross my mind to help them. It didn't even cross my mind to help them. I was so wrapped up in my own circumstances that it didn't even for a millisecond think about getting out, putting on my hazards, and help them push that car out of the way. Satan got exactly what he wanted out of me that day. He got
Very much so.
exactly what he wanted out of me. And we've always got to be ready. Before, I was looking at how many numbers of people was watching the show, how many people commented. Well, people must just not like the show anymore. I don't know. I don't know if if it's even worth doing this. If we get to minister to one person, I don't care what that number says.
And we have.
Yeah.
We even got a report this week.
Yeah.
That email you shared with me, man. Did you check
your ministry email? You saw it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
One of our listeners gave their heart to the Lord.
Former atheist,
gave her heart to the Lord, and she's being baptized this
with
Sunday.
her son.
With her son this Sunday. So praise the Lord on that. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. We need to stop being so wrapped up in ourselves that we miss the opportunities that God gives us, most likely daily, to minister to someone.
I actually had that opportunity yesterday. Mike and I was working together, and we finished up at my house because Darcia got a new desk, and we had to get the old desk out, and so we were both there at the house, and we were tying it down, and I saw this young man walk up, and walking down the street, which is a normal thing. I see guys walking up and down the street all the time. But this one walked up, stopped at the edge of the street and the driveway, and started talking. Well, I was checking the air on my trailer tires, so my compressor was kicked off, and I'm deaf, so I couldn't hear anything. So I walked right up to him, and I said, "I'm sorry, the compressor's going on, and I'm hard of hearing. What did you say?" And he said, "I was asking." He said, "I go to this particular charter school down the street." He goes, "I was wondering if there's anything that I could do to make some money so that I could go get some food." And this young man, I found out later, is 17 years old. I knew he was young.
Oh, wow.
But he's 17 years old. And my wife had just reminded me that she had made a request. I have a pile of metal that needed to be moved to another location for her. And I was like, "Give me just a minute." And I walked back, and my wife was already looking at me like,
Larry's about to give this guy money.
And I went, "Listen, you want that metal moved, right?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, well, he wants to do a job to make some money." And I reached in my pocket, and she goes, "How much?" And I said, 20. And so she handed me a 20 out of hers instead of having to give me another 20 for mine, right? So...
Don't take away Larry's lunch money.
We were mowing all day, so I had just given her $45 cash, so she just handed me 20 of that.
Yeah.
And so, no, I didn't just make 45 all day long. The rest of it was in checks. Anyway.
Gotcha.
So I had him move the metal, and I went over and opened up the gates and showed him where to put it, and then I let him move it. And he pulled off his shirt, and this is a young black guy, and he had a bunch of really fresh, not fresh, like there wasn't any scab, but they were still pink. That's how much road rash he had on his back. And I had offered to, get in the two-wheeler and air up the tires, make sure everything was good. And he was like, "No, I got it. I'll carry it." And he was tall and thin, and I figured like a basketball player or something, And so I'm kind of talking to him a little bit. But he asked me, he goes, "When I get done, would you take me to Whataburger so that I could get something to eat? I'm very hungry."
You're doing an accent. Is he Nigerian or something?
No, I didn't realize I was doing an accent.
If you are starting to do an accent, I need you to stop that because we're going to get canceled.
That was unintentional.
Yeah, we're going to get canceled.
It was unintentional.
All right. Okay.
I'm so bad at this live stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't want to get canceled.
So anyway, so when we finished, while he was finishing up, I had Mike grab the toolbox and make him room in the back seat because my back seat is full of tools. And then I had him get in the back seat, and I took him up there, and I talked to him, and he told me about the road rash. He was running on one of those little mini bike type scooters that you see nowadays.
Yeah.
That are...
Yeah, like little electric ones that they'll go like 40 miles an hour.
I'm an old biker, okay? I'm an old biker, right? Those are dangerous, and they should have never been on the road. They weren't allowed on the road when I was a kid. They're for trails and running around in the pasture, okay?
Okay.
Not for out here on the street. They
Okay.
don't even have lights. They don't have a tag. They don't have a.
I
okay.
need you to wrap this story up. Yeah.
Anyway, a guy pulled out in front of him, and he hit that guy.
Oh.
And that's how he got all the road rash. He still had a bandage on his hand and everything, so it was a fresh.
17, huh?
Yeah, and I said, God's got a purpose for you? That's why because he said, I almost got killed. I said, you know why you didn't get killed? Because God's got a purpose for you.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to him about God on the way to Whataburger. When I get there, I handed him a Bible. I handed him a Bible's Promises book, and I handed him a prayer book for healing. And I said, listen, I don't believe that we met accidentally. What I do believe is that God has a reason for your life. And I did tell him that I believe that those things shouldn't be on the road at all, but I had to, because that's what God prompted. So when God gives you those opportunities, we are to take them. And I carry around New Testaments, and actually this one was a Holy Bible, small Holy Bibles. And when I'm at Mardell's, I buy little God's Promises book, and I'm willing to invest $5 into a person's life if that's all it takes.
Yeah, absolutely. Think about this. I want you to remember back, just because I'm going to make a point here in a minute. Can you think hard back to that day? Did you have anything happening that were strange or weird that kind of tried to derail your day before that happened? You may not be able to remember, but I'm just seeing if you could.
It was yesterday.
Okay. Again, you may not be able to remember. You're 69 now, so.
Well, yeah, because I went out there expecting, 10 lawns to mow, but nobody really kind of needed it.
You had a little fiery darts coming, like worry. Well, not really worry, but
I don't worry about it. Because,
you wanted more work than what?
Yeah,
what
I wanted more work.
Yeah,
because it was so slow that even Darcia didn't come with the crew. And
Winter's,
she always comes on Friday.
Winter's coming up.
So, yeah, and everybody's shutting it down. And then I went over to Pastor Didi had asked me to come by her house and do something for her. And I was unable to do it because the thing she had me to do it with didn't they were all dried up. I'm not going to go into the details, but so I couldn't do that job after spending quite a bit of time getting there. And so I went home 2:30 in the afternoon, but it was more about, Mike coming with me and getting this desk out of the way so that Darcia can get her little office set up in the house.
Yeah.
So.
Well, my point is.
I roll with those punches.
You don't. But
I don't fiddle with them.
Maybe some of us don't. And the reason why I want to say this is that if you are having little naggy things happening and things that are trying to ruin your day and trying to divert you, you may look around because God might be fixing to send you an opportunity to minister to somebody.
Amen.
And I noticed that, man. I noticed that more than ever now. Thank God God is letting the scales fall off my eyes and start to see these kind of things, because that's all I want to do. That's all I want to do is serve God. I want to operate in the Spirit so we won't what? We won't fulfill the desires of the flesh. That's what I want to do. I want to do that all the time. I see that's what you do, man. You're just constantly doing stuff for God because that way you don't operate anything.
Well, Mike asked me, he goes, so, do you know that Darcia said my husband's going to help him, isn't he? I mean, they were having a conversation while I'm talking to the young man. Mm. And he said, of course he is. Because, Mike's been around me. He's been working with me. He knows how I'm going to be. And I said, biblically, I am to do that. I had the funds. God had actually given me extra work that day. I had the cash because one of my clients paid me in cash. And I am to help. If I say, hey, I'll pray for you, but I don't actually help them, and yet I have the ability to help them, then I am sinning.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just pure, plain and simple.
Yeah.
So God prompted me to walk up to him. God prompted me. And when he asked me, I looked him dead in the eye, and I paused. And I said, give me just a minute. Because I gave the Lord time to talk to my heart before my head answered this kid.
Yeah.
All right?
You especially got to do that.
Yeah, I do.
I do. It. Well, and that's kind of what I told Angela. I said, whenever someone calls, unless it's a salesman, then it's fine. But if someone calls you and your stomach gets a pit in it and you go, ugh, that's exactly what the enemy wants from you.
Yeah.
That's exactly what the enemy wants from you.
Exactly.
There's no one on earth that calls you that should make your stomach drop and make you go, You should be operating so hard in the spirit that God gets his intent done every single time, no matter what, out of you, because we are the what? We are the light.
We are the light and the salt
right?
of this world.
And so that's what we need to be. We need to be that constantly. And we need to stop worrying about what we're going through and miss those things.
Absolutely.
And that's why today, and I just kind of, I kind of helped her. I said, hey, you have a person that's in active drug addiction. You used to go through that. It's an opportunity for you to go, hey, I'm not giving you money, sis. I'm not going to do it. But let me tell you something. What you're going through right now and the choices you're making is leading you to nothing but death and destruction. And I want to pray for you, and I want to encourage you to get out of this sooner than what I did. You know what I mean? Instead of feeling that pit in your stomach. Where does that come from anyway? That is stupid that we're like that now. And I'm not saying that because I do it every day. That happens to me every day. And so I'm not like chastising Angela, because Angela is way better at ministering and having faith than me. Did you know that faith is actually a spiritual gift? And as soon as I heard that faith is a spiritual gift, I was like, Angela, that's her spiritual gift, without a doubt. But anyway, so I'm not chastising her. I'm just finally able to see what's going on in the spiritual realm. I'm actually finally able to see it and what God intends out of us. And it can be fun and fulfilling, and it's peaceful.
When you and I first started this walk,
don't do that with your neck
a
like
year and
that.
a half ago.
Don't do that.
A year and a half ago, I never thought it would ever come to this point. 1, 2. You were a major work in progress, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, like every time I said,
no,
God removes,
what do you
God
want me to
removes
say?
the scales off my eyes. Don't be saying that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, listen, I understand. I've been doing this, and I was not quite where you are or were, okay? Not quite there, because I didn't have doubts. When I made up my mind to go ahead and give my heart to the Lord, then I became completely 100% all in right then. And I had so much stuff in my life fighting me, at that time it was unreal.
I think God allowed those doubts out of me, and maybe that's just kind of the way I am too. I think he allowed it so I can maybe understand the unbeliever community a little bit better. Maybe, I don't know. And maybe I don't think God ever intended for me to come that close.
I think it was the perfect storm, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because with your doubt here in the podcast, and me being, quote unquote, the Peter of the group, I literally had to, I learned more empathy just by dealing with you in the podcast.
Yeah.
So that I
have
didn't
came a long way
become so vocal, vocally demanding.
Well, and then like I'll just say this: I've always been honest about my walk, but whenever I was telling Luke about whenever I had to make up my mind about the fact that did Jesus rise from the dead? Yes, I believe that. Then everything else is secondary. And then I'm going to decide that each and every single day when I wake up, and I'm going to move forward in Christ. That was like 6 months ago. That was not that long ago. That was recently. Yeah. I had all these doubts, and I had all these questions, and I had all these things, just like he was talking about, all those questions that was just making my mind all jumbled and crazy. And then I remembered that reading that account about the 500 people that had witnessed Jesus risen from the dead, and I threw my phone on the ground and I started crying. And I go, I believe this. I believe that Jesus rose from the dead. And I go, that's what you need. Because Paul said, if Jesus didn't rise from the dead, then it's all fake. It's all made up. It's all fake. It's all false. So do you believe that? Yeah. Then everything else, all those other questions doesn't matter. Let's seek God's face, not his hand, and move forward and figure out what he wants from me.
Well, that's a relationship, seeking God's face rather than his hand.
Yeah.
But I'm going to ask you, what's your first thought in the morning? When you first wake up, Ben, be honest. Don't be trying to fluff me here. But straight up, what's your first thought when you wake up?
Like honestly, you know how you guys talk about there's sometimes you don't have any thoughts ever. Like nobody's ever asked me that before, and I think I don't have any thoughts in the morning.
I really say good morning, Lord.
Honestly, like I do that.
It had to become from me. I want the last words to be to the Lord. So I kiss my wife, I tell her I love her, and I tell her good night. Then I pray over, and then I turn over and I go to sleep.
I know if I do say something, I do ask the Holy Spirit before, and I make it a point before my feet even hit the ground. I say, Holy Spirit, I need you to walk with me and guide me today. Like I need your guidance. Like I say that sometimes, but most of the time, it's just like, you can ask her. I don't do very good in the morning, bro. Like, you kind of got to get away from me for a little bit. Like, kind of leave me alone. And I think I'm just I'm kind of in zombie mode. Like, I really don't think I'm thinking anything. That's kind of weird because I think I'm thinking something constantly.
Can you imagine the power that you would have if that time was not wasted in zombie land and that you went straight into prayer time or straight into Bible time? I mean, grab a cup of coffee and go, all right, Lord, show me what you want me to do today. Do it with the joy instead of the dread, because God gave you another day to share his word and to glorify him in this world, which is the enemy's territory. And when you start having that mindset about it, then you can be excited about it, man.
I don't have dread for sure. Like, it's more of just like nothingness. Like, I'm just like I don't feel like I'm not excited to wake up, like, at all. I don't remember feeling I don't feel anything, I guess. I don't feel nothing when I wake up. I'm just like, I'm more like task oriented. Like, I have things to do, and so I start thinking about the things I have to do. Like, you know what I mean?
I have to be that way mentally because my body is already hurting so bad. Even waking up, it's like, thank goodness I can get out of this bed.
Yeah.
But I want to hit the floor knowing that my day is set before me, because the Lord ordains the steps of the righteous man.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I'm only righteous through him, nothing that I've done. But I want that desire in my heart, not my head, in my heart, to bring glory to God every day.
Yep. Okay. We're actually over 2 hours, which that's cool. Knock me down on that, buddy. Like, I don't know. I just had a really good time this episode, but let's go ahead and wrap it up. Everybody, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate everybody that's hung with us. Thank you so much. I love each and every single one of you. Larry, take us out.
Jesus loves you, and so do I.
Thank you for watching and listening. We are out.
Thanks for listening to the Help My Unbelief podcast. Tune in every week for new episodes.